everyone. I'm happy to join you remotely. It is my pleasure to share with you today my journey, my vision, and hope for the urban health in peri-urban settings. My relationship with soil started long before I became a soil scientist. In the Russian countryside that you see right now, where I grew up, my parents, who are professional agronomists, they taught me from early childhood how to take care of our land, grow our own fruits and vegetables, and be mindful about the surroundings. I ended up going to a city that ironically turned out to be one of the largest concrete jungles. So, with this passion for healthy soils, growing up in a rural environment, I ended up living in New York City, where I began noticing how urbanization transforms soils, sealing, heating, reshaping the ground beneath us. Sometimes people would ask me, so what do you do for a living in Manhattan? And I would say, well, I'm a soil scientist. They would say, but look, there's no soil around. I wanted to roll my eyes because I knew there's so much beauty underneath our feet. And here you can see just a few examples of heterogeneous urban soils. The soils are very unique in their properties. Some of them are natural, some of them are heavily human altered. Very often they're contaminated. This is the focus of my research. But also they are full of potential. Urban soils uh, give us life. This is where life begins and life eventually ends. In America, more than 80% of population resides in cities. But what happens when we neglect our soils? Soil sealing impermeable surfaces by asphalt and concrete, they affect infiltration of water. This poor infiltration causes rapid runoff and potential increase of flood risks that causes water pollution. At the same time, impervious surfaces can raise the temperature of our urban environment by 1 to 3 degrees of Celsius compared to its rural counterparts. Over 50% of urban growth happens because we replace forests. So we transform natural forest lands into urban landscapes. Currently, about 1 out of 4 US residential soils or households exceed the EPA lead screening of 200 parts per million of lead. In some cities in the Midwest, Indianapolis and Chicago, where I live right now, it's even higher, 37 or 53% of soils that exceed this level. 80% of American cities have peri-urban areas close to very intense, extensive agriculture that uses a huge amount of pesticide without sufficient protection of a buffer zone, increasing risk of pollution. But soils are not just victims of urbanization, they are our powerful allies if we manage soils wisely. Even in the densest cities, our soils quietly providing services to us. They filter water, store carbon, support green spaces, preserve our heritage. But there is more than just providing services. There is also a deeply human side. Let me ask you a simple question. Why do people grow food in cities that have everything in stores? Growing up in a rural environment, I ask myself this question very often, living in big cities. And Why would someone in Manhattan or Chicago grow tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplants, where in grocery store around the corner they have everything year round? So the answer isn't just about the food, it's also about connection. Today, more than half of American household garden. The pandemic added nearly 18 million gardeners. Most of them are young adults. For many, it's not just about growing food or even a reduction of grocery bill. It's also about mental health, physical activity, education, and community building. And also, when children get their hands dirty and grow their own vegetables, they're more likely to consume those vegetables. So that's how change or behavior change really begins. Concerns about inflation, tariff, possible disruptions to the food supply have driven people to grow food more and more in their own backyards or in community gardens to ensure that they have a fresh produce, consistent one. With grocery prices rising, and gardening is also seen as a practical way to offset those food expenses and help families to stretch their budgets. Gardening provides healthy, pesticide free food, promotes physical activity, mental well being. It reduces stress and improves your mood. A lot of Americans are motivated by environmental concerns, seeking to lower their carbon footprint, support pollinators, and adopt climate friendly practices in their own backyards. Community and urban gardening efforts have surged, fostering social connections, mutual aid, and greater resilience. People garden to pass down knowledge from generation to generation to younger children or to preserve their cultural traditions. So it's really important to know where the food comes from, especially when we grow and live in concrete jungles. So urban soils are not just an environmental issue, they are also a social one. And that's why education is so important. And I'm all about bringing soil science to communities. I love to say that my science, soil science, is people science. And I try to find a way how to bridge this gap between university, academia, and citizens, people of cities. Here's some ideas I put together in a framework how we can include more people and engage them in urban soil research. For example, integrating mobile apps, web platforms, just special tools so that we can streamline data collection from people and engage those individuals, get a real-time feedback, develop targeted outreach programs to involve underrepresented communities, vulnerable, marginalized communities. Collaborate with policymakers, urban planners, environmental advocates, just like the group we have today, and turn participatory science into actionable policy recommendations. We should partner more with schools and educational institutions to really include more soil science in the curriculum. So children know from early age where our food comes from and how to grow it in their schoolyards if they don't have their own backyards. We should establish an open data platform where people can access data, share it, analyze it, and really being engaged. We should be more transparent about making results of our soil research more publicly available. And creating some fun activities, some games, why not? Challenges and reward system that would maintain people's interest to be involved for long term in participatory science projects. We really need to invest in encouraging people in the children to be involved in our science projects but also get something in return. For example, we can create more books, more labs, more videos, more different tests. And there was this great book that recently came out to the market. And why it's so great? Well, because I wrote it. I was working on in New York on putting together labs for my students who were at botanical gardens. And it needed to be not super complicated because we had a short period of time to do the workshops, and we needed to have it in not very high-tech lab condition. So I put together these 20 activities that now anyone really can do it, and you can get this book in English in anywhere in the world through Springer website. But it really gives us opportunity to study what we have in our gardens, in our environments. And you don't need to have a lab, and you don't need to be a scientist or take a university course. You can just try to dig soil, get your hands dirty, and learning what pH is, what soil texture is, where potentially contamination can come from. And all it can be done very relatively easy. Researchers found that soil education performances can be improved when we use attractive graphics and modern digitally based strategies. And here's some examples on how I do it. I love translating soil science into the language that people, public, can actually understand and care about. And I do it by creating some actionable infographics so people can clearly see what they should and shouldn't do, and publishing in magazines, for example, not just journal scientific articles, because most of people don't have access to it. And those articles are very sophisticated and sometimes very hard to understand and very long. So we need something that is much simpler to understand and anyone can have access to. Another example is that younger audiences don't read textbooks anymore, and these young people really consume the information mostly through screen. So why not meet them where they are? Translating soil lessons into reels, stories, short videos. Through my platform, House of Soil, and my TEDx talk, I show that soil is not just science. It's culture, style, and identity. And it's time for us to get creative and share soil knowledge through our experiences and our stories. And this is how we make soil science more attractive. This is how I believe we can make people or encourage people to care more about the soil health in our urban cities. So the way to preserve urban and peri-urban soil is through integration of soil in the urban planning, which is often stays ignored. It's through promotion of unsealing our paved roads and make our soils capable of infiltrating stormwater again. By building more green infrastructure, parks, green spaces, bioswales, urban wetlands. And we must bridge science, policy, and citizens together. And we can do it through education by bringing soil literacy and participatory sciences. So the health of our cities begins with the soil. Let us unseal, restore, and reconnect, because regeneration starts from the ground up. From my family's garden in a rural area to community plots in New York, I've learned that soil always gives back when we give it a chance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Paltseva. Indeed, very inspiring, and especially when it comes to dissemination. from the science, hardcore science, into something that the children and, of course, parents and grandparents and all of us should really take into the heart. It's actually a matter of that, no? It's getting into the heart and care for the soil. If it's in urban areas or in rural areas, it's always the same connection. Really, really beautiful. Thank you so much. We will move to